Hi, Selena for Who is Jesus today. And you know what I'm going to discuss. I'll try to be brief though, as well as sensitive to those who may happen to hear this video and who could be a friend or related to Sonya Massey. And I am going to be coupling emotion with logic. I don't believe we have to lean totally toward one side or the other. If you cannot feel any emotions about a life just being snatched out, as Sonya's was, or also the life that is aborted in the womb, and also a life when people self-delete, and when young black kids are being slain in our streets across the cities in America. And if you don't have any emotion regarding how in these urban enclaves a lot of the crime is not from outside but inside of these communities, if you're not having any kind of emotion about the people that are coming across the border, it should not have been like this at all. But since it is, we also know there's been the loss of lives and the abuse of women and children. We also know that, yes, there is a history of police brutality, and that has been shown toward minorities, particularly black and Hispanics, and others as well. We can say Asians, but it has been, I guess, more prevalent or believed to be amongst black males in the inner city. With all of that being said, how can you not have any emotion when you are part of the tapestry of humanity? But I'm aware, with all the things that I've just discussed, that things can at times be stretched, too far reached, and taken out of context, and it's possible to read more into situations and tragedies than it actually is. To deny that there's not a problem with our youth being snatched out, either by officers who should not be cops to begin with, because they are criminals behind a badge. Now, when I make that statement, it's coming from a person who has a respect and who really believes in law enforcement, okay, and have respect for men and women in the, I was going to say in the red and the red, white, and blue, and the blue. And when I was really young, I had sometimes these aspirations that I wanted to be a cop too. I was thinking about, wow, maybe I should be a part of the NYPD, okay? So, yeah, this is not to put down officers, but it is to call out those who are wrong and evil. And it is to call out those who use their authority abusively, and for the crooks who hide behind badges. And let me tell you, I am still under the impression that there are less crooks who are hiding behind a badge than those who really believe in the honor of what those badges represent. That they are first responders and they are called to protect the citizens of society, not to cause them to be even more vulnerable. So, with that, you're going to need to take your bowl and mix up emotion with logic, as well as with facts. right? And with that, I like to say that to every parent out there who feel that they've lost their child unjustifiably by a police officer, you need to be acknowledged and respected and not told, well, you have too much emotion, or so what about all the crime that's all around you and in your city? Yeah, that's real, right? That's real for the people who are living in these large cities throughout America that have a large population of minorities and disparities, right? But still, a parent doesn't need to hear that when they are grieving over the loss of a child or a relative or friend or relative or a spouse, if it was unjustifiable. Now, a big question is, what's justifiable and what's not? If it's avoidable, I don't think I have to know a lot about being an officer to know that it's very likely unjustifiable. If it's avoidable, how can it be justifiable? So, if someone wants to pull my intent that I am trying to say that the cop, Sean Grayson, murdered Sonya because she is African American, I said that's a possibility. I said it was always going to be a possibility, but I didn't say for sure that it was. But I did say it's a possibility. It's a strong possibility, but I cannot say it's a fact. Because of the context of the history toward minorities of police brutality, it's going to always be in our minds that it's a possibility, right? So suppose it was a person who was of any Asian descent. Asia is huge. When we say Asia, it could be a Filipino, it could be a Cambodian. They come in different shades, It could be a person who is from China, Japan, Laos, India. I mean, okay, so just if you say Asian, okay. So it's a possibility that it could have happened because of their ethnicity. That's always going to be a possibility when you have people who look like Sean Grayson, right? Because of his phenotype. They could be from a country in Europe or Africa. They would still be of a different ethnicity than those who are born in the United States. Then I guess a classification there would be that they are a foreigner. And you could say that because they are a foreigner, that it could be a possibility why the officer became so brutal and so much offended by the behavior, any kind of action that would come from people who represent these populations. We will always have those questions a lot in the speculation. Okay? But I like to say, when we are dealing with not just our emotions, but the logic and putting these things together, I'm hearing how she threw the water. I didn't really see that video that clearly. So I'm not going to go back and forth and say she did or she didn't. But what I did see is that the water spilled. And I don't know if she projected out or if it spilled. But that's not the issue. You may say it is, but no, we have to think the issue before that happened. So first of all, I've heard some more recent information that this officer knew of Sonya. I'm not saying that they know each other well, but in other words, they're not strangers to each other. He was not a stranger to this woman. He was aware of her, aware of that she's there, and also aware that she has those mental challenges. Because from what I heard, this is from other news, is that he was specifically also assigned to people who are in her condition. So maybe I'm reaching far here, but I made a video that probably threw people off the title. I said racism, ? Domestic, ? Demonic, ? And I say it could be the combination of all three. Because think about it. If a person wants to hurt someone and brutalize them for how they were born and how they look, you don't think that's not demonic? Of course it is. Now people can misjudge a book by its cover, and people will tend to maybe stereotype certain people, assuming that because they look a certain way, they must be feeling or thinking a certain way. That's not cruel. That's people. We all sometimes make misjudgments. We all may think a person speak a particular, say, language, and they don't have any clue what you're talking about, right? You know, I've heard people walk up to someone, and I think sometimes they may be speaking Chinese to them because they assume they're Chinese. You figure they would know who is part of their group, right? And they'll say, I don't speak Chinese, you know? So that's a misassessment, right? Right. So it happens to the very best of us. But when you walk into a place, and because someone is different, and you just decide that you are so against them because they are not like you, be it white on black, black on white, white on other minority groups, ethnicities, or those minority groups also can be against a person who's white. It can go either way. Anyone who wants to come in and charge at you and take you down and brutalize you because of how you came into the world, okay? I mean, this has happened all throughout our history with the empires, you know? It was in Europe, you know, how the Romans, the Huns, and the Ottomans, and the Mongols invaded people. And there was rape involved. Yeah. You know, if you are trying to wonder why you got that 2% of, say, maybe Greek, well, Alexander the Great, he went all over. Okay? They're making babies, and this is what's happening. This is human exploitation. So people exploit people who are in their same groups or similar, and they exploit people who are in different continents and races. Whatever it was, it's evil, and they're being controlled by evil forces. How can a person who loves Christ, a man of God, a woman of God, want to just snatch and wipe someone off the earth and erase them because of how they were born? I mean, because the conviction of the Holy Spirit, you know, you know, it's going to be hard to carry that out. So what we do really doesn't matter, but also how we react to what was done. And this is why I say we need a combination of emotion with logic. You have to get emotional when you see how this woman was shot. regardless of her background. I mean, if it was an Asian woman and this happened, it would be something that stirs up emotion. Again, I do support the right of a cop to defend himself, but you gotta think too. There is some information out there if you have not gotten it yet. He was aware of her. So we're looking at this incident, but it doesn't mean there's no prior history, that he's not aware of her situation, her struggles, because you can tell by his communication. When he was talking to her, first of all, he didn't have to go inside. But you can see that he wanted to. Can anyone see that he could have asked her for that information at the door? He didn't have to go inside. Right? I mean, cops, right? It wasn't a search warrant. The woman is inside with her business, preparing for her dinner. It shouldn't be his business that, he's asking her for this information as if he has no idea who she is. I don't believe he doesn't have any idea who she is, because I did hear that he was assigned to people who are in her situation. So she was having an episode, as they call it, right? A crisis. He's familiar with this. He is supposed to be familiar with the people who have these problems. And you can see that he was investigating outside thoroughly. He did his job out there. And when he did his job, everything was cleared. And he knows that she can potentially probably have these type of delusions. So he's aware of her condition. Sean Grayson is not like a stranger to Sonya. He works with people in this population, and somewhat like he's assigned. You know how it goes out there, officers. So when he went in there, and he is standing over her, they don't appear to be like they're just blank strangers. And he's asking her for stuff, and he said, "I will get out of your hair," which I felt was kind of, it's like, so like, in other words, he knows he's overstepping. He got her going through all this stuff, taking up time. She could have done that at the door. But even if she went to sit down, and he knows she's having an episode, just look around and see if there's something that can maybe be a potential harm while he is gathering these details, and turn it off. You also have to say he was instigating a problem before it really became one. Telling her to go and turn off the pot. He doesn't have a right to just tell her to turn off her pot that she is cooking. He did not have to be in her home. But not only does he say to go and to turn it off, but he also makes a statement instigating, as if she intends. Like he says, we don't want a fire, And then he's concerned about the hot water. And he is escalating her about the hot water. Sometimes people can say stuff and your mind is not even there. How you feel if your friend come over and you're chopping up the onions and the garlic and the ginger, right? Gonna make some fried rice, right? And they say, don't cut me up now with that knife. I'm like, you come over my house, you've been coming over and you think that I'm gonna cut you, I'm gonna cut you with the knife. That would make me uncomfortable with anyone was to say that to me. Someone that I know well or I don't know well. It would make me uncomfortable if I invite over some maybe guests in business and they come out and say, I hope you don't cut me with that knife. I would feel too, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus that you would think such a thing and put that false accusation on me. I don't receive your accusational spirit. That wasn't even on my mind. And I'm not going to let somebody try to plant some evil on me either. And that's what I see here. She's having to make her a dinner. He happened to come over. She was taking a little time to open the door. And he turned the situation of her making her dinner, boiling the water. Do you think that guy, she was boiling the water because she knew the cop was coming? And maybe she has had, with this cop in the past, maybe they had a little bit of a disagreement or something. And so now she knows that the cop is coming. And she's going to get her hot water ready because she's going to have to get back at him. I don't believe she was in that type of crisis. That she was intentionally planning to burn these officers with hot water. I mean, really. I mean, she did duck and said she was sorry. So she did have enough of her mind to have the fear of dying, and she did want to preserve her life. Because she said sorry. But even as she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, a professional officer is not supposed to want to take out your life for saying that. It is demonic activity. What if you tell the cop he's got a bad haircut, or if you tell the cop that he looks terrible, or he's overweight or something, that he's supposed to say, well, I'm going to take you out? What did you say? What did you say? You called me a name? Or you called me something? I mean, honestly, this would be terrible. But either way, even to approach an officer with a racial or ethnic comment, does that mean out there, officers, that you're supposed to shoot the person? What happened to, wrestling with someone to handcuff them and arrest them and put them in the car? But there was no arrest warrant, right? I do know that much. So I'm using logic here. I'm using logic. When someone is angry, and even if they tell the officer, leave me alone, I don't care to talk to you right now. Well, the cop, of course, will insist, well, we need to talk about it. I need to get this information. But is that a reason to pull out your gun? When someone says, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, you pull out your gun, you got the devil working, say, double time here. But you say she threw the hot water. He couldn't use a taser? I'm going to kind of leave it there. I think I have been on this because I felt led to be on it because I said racism, question mark, domestic, question mark, demonic, question mark. And I feel it can be elements of all three. But I know for sure it is demonic. That I don't have to verify. It is demonic. And we need to think, what are his spiritual dealings? Well, as I said, tattoos is a marker. It's an identification of what people say they represent, what are their beliefs. I mean, it's just an affiliation. Anyone who has skulls as tattoos would concern me, of any background. If they got a flower, if they got the name of their daughter, if they got a Bible verse, if they got the house they grew up in, if they got a cheeseburger, would you be alarmed? But if they pull out their arm and you see a tattooed up and down human skulls, would you not pay attention to that? Or just dismiss it as if it wasn't any different than if they had a tree or a house? I believe if you are aware of spiritual warfare and what these things represent in the world of the demonic and the superstitions and the sacrifice and other ritual and the occult sacrifices, and that and people in the cult, they even drink blood. And I wouldn't be surprised if they can even do that from skulls. So there is something to this individual based on those tattoos. I'm not going to sit here and accuse this man like I know all of his life. There's nothing to accuse, though, from his actions. They were wrong. The way it was handled was wrong. It led to this woman's demise. He was pushing the hot water too much, as if that became weaponized to carry out this act of violence, which makes me think more, put on more of my critical thinking cap. Did they have any ill contact in the past with any kind of communication since he's assigned to this particular task force? I mean, they're not, what we saw that night, I don't think that they are complete strangers. That's what I want to say. Because the way he was dealing with her, it was like he had something in his heart there. And I'm just trying to figure out what was the ongoing contact, if there was any. She calls out, probably, and yeah. I don't think that Sonya was a stranger to Officer Grayson. I just don't really think so. That's just my gut feeling. I don't think so. And I really feel that rage did not just occur when he walked in that house. That it was there already. That's just the way I feel. Because of the way he related to her in the very beginning. It was like he was out there. He knew he didn't have to go in, but he slowly did go in. And once he was in that woman's home, I don't know how anyone can say that situation was justifiable. It was that time when she's making her food. He saw that pot was there in that steam. That became weaponized. He created a situation where it was as if she was going to use that as a weapon. I don't believe at all that was her intention. That was projected on her. Projection is very sneaky. People will project on you as if you're going to do something so that they can take out something against you for what you never ever plan to even do. That's what that looks like to me. Yeah. A criminal behind a badge. It could be a witch doctor behind a badge, a warlock, a sexual offender. It could be anything. A racist, a misogynist. It could be that too. But whatever, I still put the label on it, demonic. So, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I've been troubleshooting as I hear different things and putting some things together. I guess kind of being a detective here myself, okay, for lack of a better term. I will say this, I have had some experience breaking down plots and things that are related to crime. And you just take the pieces, you take the information and you compile it and you pull it apart. And yes, you can use emotion and logic, not leaning entirely on one or the other, as well as the context of what has happened historically. You can put all that together. So, that's what I've been doing. And I just really feel in my gut that this was premeditated. Now, why? Okay, those are my thoughts. Thank you for listening and allowing me to express myself and to respect my opinions and insights about it. And I'm open to having my lens adjusted, but I just cannot go with that. This was justifiable. This was avoidable. You don't escalate a person and aggravate them too, and then you cause them to overreact. And then you come at them with brutal force for doing so. No, that's not right. It wasn't right from the very beginning, but I believe it was also a problem even before that night occurred that we see on the camera. Okay? So you can like and subscribe. Until next time, Shalom.